Welcome to the Nonprofit Digital Success Podcast. I'm your host, David, and today I have Barron Schimberg on the show. Allow me to introduce him. Barron is an architect, lead AP who is registered in Florida and Texas with a master's in architecture from Tulane University. His firm has been in business for over 17 years, won numerous awards for projects ranging from residential to restaurants, and has also been featured in 2 books by famed retail guru Martin Pegler. His approach is called concierge architecture, where they provide ongoing architectural and interior design services to clients who have multiple projects over extended periods of time, who pay them on a set monthly basis for a minimum of a 1-year contract. Very similar to a concierge doctor. Their other types of clients are nonprofits like Resilient Retreat, which is a 30-bed retreat for people that have experienced trauma, 40 Carrots, which is a community organization providing parenting and family counseling, and Suncoast Humane Society, which is a dog and cat shelter in Florida. Barron is also a co-author of Pancakes and Pickles, a children's book dedicated to supporting Miracle League of Minnesota, a nonprofit organization providing the opportunity for differently abled children and adults to play the game of baseball. I brought Barron on the show because of the nature of fundraising and capital campaigns is something that your nonprofit should be considering if you're not already doing so. Because of his architecture background and working with NPOs, he has a unique perspective and insight that might inspire you. Barron, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Very good.
A man of many words.
I actually probably do have many words. This is a first time for me, and I'm looking forward to really having a conversation and seeing how we can help.
Amazing. So if you're good to go, let's dive in and we'll get going with this. So at what point should a nonprofit consider hiring an architect?
I would say the point that a nonprofit should consider hiring an architect is at that time when they consider either expanding or renovating their existing, or possibly have a donor provide them or buy a piece of property.
Okay. And have you worked with any organizations that have been in that situation where there's like absolutely nothing, like just a plot of property?
Yes, we have. We've actually worked with organizations that have either considered buying a piece of property, and we've helped them actually go around with realtors, literally, and look at different pieces of property and given them feedback as to whether or not that makes sense, or whether it's in a good location, or whether they can even put in what they want to put in terms of the existing footprint, or can they hit the parking requirements. And then in other cases, we've actually had organizations that actually owned the piece of property. They are existing in another facility, and they have been considering and or preparing to design and develop a new facility for themselves. So they have this piece of property, and they're trying to figure out, okay, what do we do with it now?
That's amazing. So as an architect, as your firm, right? How can you help a nonprofit raise donor money?
So as an architect, we have, I think, a unique position when it comes to raising money for nonprofits. At the end of the day, pictures speak 1,000 words. And when a nonprofit is able to present to a potential donor or even as part of a capital campaign, renderings, photorealistic images, models, anything that can get somebody to be interested in that nonprofit, or get excited about that nonprofit, or get excited about even specifically putting their name on a building. That's where we come in, and we really not only have found that after producing these documents, or these what we call collateral helps, but sometimes we actually end up getting into conversations with the actual donor and create a relationship in that way that helps the nonprofit because then they can put somebody sort of directly in front of them that can appeal to what they're asking for or what they really want. And it gives us the ability to design then accordingly. And again, it's all about just appealing to what their needs are, what their desires are, and what they want, and what they're willing to put up money for.
So you mentioned collateral, right? A lot of people that listen to this podcast, they're in like marketing communication roles, like they're very familiar with collateral. Can you expand a little bit more about the different types of collateral that you've worked with nonprofits in producing?
Sure. So, in terms of what we can produce that falls under the sort of umbrella of collateral, it really ranges from anywhere from what we call a master plan. And a master plan can be anything from a site plan that is maybe just black and white, all the way to a rendered site plan, which shows the actual design on the actual property. We have one project now, Suncoast Humane Society, that is 11 acres on an extremely treed, extremely lush, extremely environmentally sensitive property that we have been able to actually take every single tree and put it on the master plan and then show how the buildings fit within that. So master plans fall into collateral. And then as we get further along into the design, we can get into what the actual buildings look like. So you can get into more sketchy, more sort of watercolor, romantic drawings and renderings to photorealistic renderings, which show the name of what that building is, or the donor's name, or the purpose of that building, or the logo of the nonprofit and how it fits into the design. So as we get further along into the design and they reflect the phasing or the phases that we're at, our renderings and our collateral then reflect exactly where we're at with that. I mean, we can even, right now we're designing a donor wall, or we're as part of the process, as part of the design for Suncoast, we are doing a donor wall. We designed a donor wall. We actually made a mock-up of the donor wall to present to them. So that is also collateral, because it becomes something that people can touch and feel, and they can see, okay, I can put my name on that donor card. And we've actually also created 3D models of the actual building that then can be displayed in a lobby or, for people to see. That can also be collateral. And I would say the last thing that we've also done is interior material boards, which one may not think that, oh, that's collateral, but when a donor, let's say, looks at that and says, oh, I love that fabric, or I love that those colors, or the palette. Again, it's all about getting them excited to say, okay, I want to put money up, and I want to put money towards your facility, or your organization. So even those become collateral.
In terms of working with the nonprofits and providing these collateral pieces, do you typically get any feedback from the nonprofits in terms of they've seen an increase in donors, or an increase in larger donors, or donors that have already donated, if they're going to give, I don't know, $500,000 or $1 million to the charity, that once they see these things, they get even more excited and want to put more money towards the project?
Yes, we often see, once we create the collateral, the donors, many times the donors have already committed, right? So they have said, okay, we're willing to put up this money for this facility. However, we want to see now what our money's going to and what it looks like. So when they see the rendering with their name on it, it confirms that that's what they want. So I think it sort of solidifies their commitment to the organization. But then also, if there are situations where the organization needs more donors and has to create capital campaign for it, then yes, we absolutely have seen that once renderings are put out there and once people can see what they're putting their money towards, they start to generate capital. I mean, it's almost, again, like I said, pictures speak 1,000 words, and it's almost inevitable that people will gravitate towards a rendering or towards what the building looks like. And we've even, it even gives them the opportunity to give their opinion, which everybody wants to give, and especially somebody that's giving money at large sums, let's say, to a specific organization. So it starts the interaction and the engagement in that way, that maybe they're not necessarily putting up more money, but if you can get them engaged and thinking about that organization, then it just helps in their continued passion towards it and in the continued design. And ultimately, we find that design always gets better, even when it becomes, let's say, challenging to deal with different opinions. At the end of the day, I'm a firm believer that if you make changes or if things shift, the shift is always better than the original. It just inevitably happens that way. That's what often happens with these renderings and with this collateral, that it starts to not only make the project better, but it also engages the donors and makes them more excited about it.
Yeah, and to that point, being able to engage with the donors, get their buy-in, make them, once you really see something, right? Like the Field of Dreams quote, right? If you build it, they will come, right? Even though you haven't actually built anything in the physical world, the digital construction that you've done, the creation of those assets, of the collateral, creates that excitement, and it feels more real, even though nothing has really physically actually happened on site.
Well, and that's where I would say the master plan really comes into play, because once a building goes vertical, then almost anybody can say, okay, I can see my name on there, I can see it, what it looks like, or I can understand how it feels or whatever. But in the master plan phase, when you've got this piece of property, whether there's a building on it or not, and you're trying to figure out, what actually am I going to do with this, right? Then there's this real disconnect between seeing a piece of property and seeing what goes on that piece of property, and how the design of ultimately what you want on that property best helps the organization further their mission. So that master planning phase, I've always said, is the most important. We can design anything, but figuring out what goes on that property is probably the more difficult part of it. And if people can start to understand, oh, okay, I have a single building, or I have multiple buildings, or I have the relationship of the building to the parking, or if I have solar, or whatever comes out of that process of master planning, that in itself starts to generate interest and starts to generate donor capital campaign interest, so that they start to really, like I said, get engaged and say, okay, I want to be a part of this.
Yeah, and even having a board up on the site, like the future home of, right, with a rendering behind it. People drive by, they see it, they start getting excited. There's some talk in the community. Oh, what's this about? They start looking around online. And that's where the digital aspect can come in, creating a microsite or something like that for the site, try to solicit donations through that as well, and just, let people know about it, which ties in, I guess, to what I wanted to ask you next. So you're producing these pieces of collateral, but who do you work with or deal with typically as an architect when it comes to helping with the marketing side of it?
So as the architects, we typically immediately deal with the executive director. Okay, so every organization is different. So in some cases, the first person that we dealt with was really the founder. And in one case, she was the driving force behind the design, and she really started the process and came up with the concept. And in that case, that's who we dealt with, was the founder. As she grew, she started to bring on executive directors and more people on staff, let's say. And ultimately, as the architect, we end up working with the executive director. So that's pretty much, the first person. Then we recommend that they always create a building committee. And whether you want to call it a design, Sometimes they call it a design committee, and then that turns into a building committee. Sometimes it's the same committee, design/building committee. But we ultimately always recommend that there is a committee that can then go back to the board, because there's always a board, right? So there's an executive director that reports back to the board, but then there should be a committee that reports back to the board. We always recommend that you keep it to a maximum of 5 people, and those are the people that we then communicate with. And again, every organization is different, and part of one day I'm going to put on my business card psychologist, because I think as I start to as we continue to work with boards and work with nonprofits, we find that there is a therapeutic part of dealing with boards, especially with nonprofit boards, because they are as passionate as any person gets with a specific organization, right? Versus a developer or a private entity. They're a little different, or a restaurateur, let's say. They're very different. Boards and nonprofits have a little bit unique approach to everything. So we try to work with them and figure out what exactly they're looking for, because they all have different opinions. But ultimately, it comes down to our direct connection with an executive director, which gets us to where we really need to be.
And in terms of like renderings and where organizations should think about using them, does it make sense to like have things online during the process? At what point in the process would it make sense to bring the project to life in the digital space, like online, on a website, on microsite, that type of thing?
Right. So most organizations have websites, and the best time to start bringing in the collateral and the renderings and the images that we create is really at a point when we get to a design level that is truly reflective of what they want to represent and what they want to present to the community. Meaning there's a ton of time when we first start working with nonprofits, that there are a lot of sketches and a lot of design and a lot of images that may or may not be applicable to presenting to potential donors. But at some point you get to a level of design that is truly reflective of what they want. And once you get to that point, then it becomes, okay, now's the time to present it. The website is always a great location to do that in. Mostly that applies to people that are already involved, right? I don't know if you're going to necessarily present to people that don't know about the website, right? It's not necessarily to generate new visitors to the website. More importantly, it gives them the ability to direct people that may not know about the website to the website and then look at those renderings, right? So, and we often work closely with their marketing person, and most nonprofits do have that. And we present them with certain, then you get into exactly what level of DPI and what level of images they need, whether it's for a website, whether it's for a brochure. We have helped certain organizations actually put together their brochures and provide them with ideas of how to present the information and the renderings and the images that we're giving them. We do like to get involved on a graphic level as architects. Not every architect does, but we tend to. So we enjoy that process, mainly because it's at the end of the day, again, it's representative of our work, and we want that interaction and we want that ability to help them present it in the best way that they possibly can. So, meaning you could potentially take a rendering that may or may not look right in one way, but if you present it in this way, then it would generate more interest. So sometimes that is something that we do for them, but ultimately it goes on a website, goes in brochures. Depending on the community, it could be presented on television. So oftentimes we get interviewed by the local community news station about the potential, about the future project and how that's presented. If they organize a groundbreaking, that's often with news, outlets there. So a question of how that's presented, in terms of boards and on easels and how people see that. We've even put together videos with audio in the background of an animation taking one through the facility so that it's not just an animation, but it also incorporates my talking about the design. But in one case, we actually brought on the executive director and let her speak also, so that it was a combination of design, but also passion and presenting what the organization was about as part of the video and as part of the collateral for this. So, and then that can be sent to different donors. Oftentimes we find that the executive directors and or board members have specific people in mind that they want to approach, right? And they want to say, and they want to be able to go to that person or that family or that trust or that, avenue to send them something to say, hey, I want you to support this organization. So that becomes a question of what are you sending them? And at that point, we help to present, the best possible collateral to do that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I know we spoke a little bit earlier on about, having the collateral and helping organizations raise money and steward donors towards donations. Is there anything else that an architect could help a nonprofit with during the construction of the building to raise money?
During the construction, well, I think an architect can help during construction by just doing a good job and making sure that it's being constructed quickly and on time and on schedule and the way that it was meant.
And on budget. And on budget.
Exactly. And on budget. Now, once you've gotten to the construction portion of it, the budget better be set, right? I mean, we don't want, we pride ourselves on the fact that we very rarely have big change orders unless there's a change from the owner, right? So it's not based on, I hate to use the word mistakes, but it's not based on things that were missed or things that were maybe allowances or stuff. We tend to be very detailed and very specific in our design so that there aren't big questions moving into construction. But during construction, there are often walkthroughs set up and visits set up by potential donors. And we have given tours of our buildings before. We've been asked by the owners or by the organization to, take people through, to meet with them. We also tend to support them financially during the process of construction, obviously. So we attend and sponsor a lot of the events during construction of nonprofits often. And they always have events during that process of construction, which they should. So, we are often there anyway. And we enjoy going to the events and they're all, unique in their own way. And they some are like we've been to the orchestra out in the middle of this incredible forest for this one event, or we, attend a gala and we, are sitting at a table with potential people that are interested. So, we become stewards sort of the nonprofit to represent them as we, are meeting new people and talking about our project. So in that way, and that is, again, typically during construction, I think we find that's what happens. And oftentimes we are asked to speak at the events and during construction, and again, to give tours and to talk about it. So I think all of that helps to generate interest. And it, again, makes the connection between the architect and the organization. And in terms of raising dollars and raising capital for that organization, it brings everything home that, hey, this is for real. They have an architect. They're building this. He's still involved or she's still around. So anytime you can make it more real and not just a pretty picture or just a fantasy, for the future of this organization, anytime it becomes more real, people get more connected to it. And we as architects are the front line sort of doing that for any project that moves beyond just an idea.
Yeah, so many great pieces in there for sure. Having those multiple touch points with big donors, mid-sized donors, it's all very key to bringing them towards becoming somebody who's willing to participate in the organization financially and with their time. And I think it's really important that the people who are listening to this, that not specifically just about architects and architecture and building new property or resurfacing or refacing or any of that, you need to have that touch with the people that you're going after and not just hit them up with an ask every year or every quarter or something like that. You need to really involve them in your organization in one way or another. And I think that's exactly what you're just talking about, right? Having galas, meeting with them, having events, bringing them through on tours, letting them touch and feel and see everything. So I think it's really key.
Yeah. I've heard before architects say, and every architect's different, obviously, but I've heard architects say, the best project is the one not built because you don't have to worry about anything, right? Because you just design. All they want to do is design. And I've never felt that way. And to me, the best projects are the ones that are built, but more importantly, the ones that the owners and and in this case, organizations, walk through and they just love it more because of the design and because of the architecture, because of the building. And as owners or as organizations or as executive directors can get that much more passionate, which is hard to do because they are very passionate about their mission, right? But if they can get that much more passionate about the new facility or about the renovated facility, then that translates to potential donors. And they go, if they're that excited about this, then I can get that excited about this. And wow, they must have really done something great. And this is really going to help the community, or this is really going to help their patron. Or this is really going to help, the person that's going to need this the most. So, you can't underestimate the results or the benefit to not just doing it, but doing it in a collaborative and in a well thought out and in a wonderful designed way. Because that just gets people excited. And that's what people then want to give money towards.
And to that point, it's great to try to hit up private donors or corporate donors, sponsors, that type of thing. But there's other money that's out there, right? Local, state, or provincial or federal grants are out there and available. How can, as an architect, how can you help a nonprofit try to pull in some of that government money?
Well, easily. So the way architects can help nonprofits bring in outside money, let's say, whether it's grants or government, I'll give you a real example. One of our organizations, Resilient Retreat, that we have worked with over it's been many years now that we've been working with them. They just recently went out for a grant for $100,000 grant, which is a pretty substantial amount of money. And it was they needed a very quick turnaround. They were putting together the application, and part of the application requirements was to create a rendering or something to show what was going to go in this place and where this money was going to go towards, right? So within a matter of, I don't know, a week, we were able to put together a rendering that we hadn't done before, but we had created the model. I mean, we had enough of the design, obviously, together that we were able to put together the renderings to represent not only just a great design, a great picture, but also specific to that grant. So that grant was about therapy and about therapy rooms and how those rooms were going to help the community. So we put together this rendering that was specifically reflective of rooms that we had designed into the building and into the campus that were specifically meant for therapy and specifically meant for that purpose. And we were able to even put specific wording on the rendering that appealed to certain aspects of the grant, and we gave it to them, and they ended up getting the grant. So
it's amazing. That's in such a short time. That blows my mind.
You can't get it any more specific to answer that question, right? I mean, that is what we as architects can do, and that is ultimately what putting that proper presentation together and working with the nonprofits to do can easily and hopefully generate dollars from outside of just private interest, but through grants and government.
That is absolutely phenomenal. You just totally blew my mind. $100,000, like a couple of weeks of work to pull it together and make it happen. I'm sure it was a little bit stressful during that time to bring it together. That's probably an understatement, but
yeah, I was going to say it's not a couple of weeks of work. It was months and years of work. It just
okay
to come together in that way, and it works. It really does, and look, there's nothing better from our standpoint as the architect, having sort of gone through this long process with the in this particular case the owner or the founder, to be sitting in a meeting and they across from the table say, "Hey, Barron, by the way, we got that grant. Like, thank you so much for putting that together. We know you had other things." They knew it was a rush, not a rush, but I had to put other things aside to get this package together, right? So they understood that, and they were beyond thankful and appreciative of what we had done, and for us to have done that and get that result. I mean, that is about all I really want, and what
that's amazing.
Strive for.
Being able to help an organization like that who, being involved in nonprofits, it's very obvious that it's a more often than not, it's a passion of love, and there's a reason that people are involved in it. And it's so great that you're able to help organizations bring that to fruition and help it come to life. It's amazing. It's amazing.
And honestly, we choose our nonprofits deliberately. I'm not interested in just taking on a nonprofit for cash flow or just to have a nonprofit, quote unquote, in the office. We choose nonprofits that we believe in, that we would support whether we were the architect or not. And that gives us our own passion for the project. And it gives us the ability to feel good about what we do and feel good about the design and really embrace the design and embrace the people that we're working with. And that's our choice. I mean, there are other, I'm sure, architects or architectural firms that just do any nonprofit because they just like nonprofits, and that's great. For us, it's a more of a little bit more personal, I would say, for organizations that we believe in.
And it's important. Your passion shows. Like when you're talking about these projects that you're working on, it's important to really care about the work that you're doing and who you're doing it for, and whatever the mission and the goal and objective is. Absolutely. So this has been so great. I've picked up a number of really great tips that I'm going to take back to some of the organizations that we work with at Wow Digital and chat with the foundations on those sides. And, maybe there's some ideas they haven't thought of. So, it's really great. And I hope the people that are listening, that you that you're also able to take something back and maybe turn it into a positive venture that your organization can move forward with. So that's really great. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, what do they need to do?
They can multiple ways. They can get in touch with me through our website, which is probably the quickest. And there will be, I believe, also we're going to have a little giveaway. I don't have it in front of me, David. I hope you have. If you can say that, I don't have it. But we're going to put up on our website a link to a sort of a post that just gives some information to nonprofits moving forward that are maybe considering, developing a piece of property or expanding or growing. I've written many blog posts on this subject. So there are, if you go to our blog, which is emptyspace.com, it's through our website, but it's called Empty Space. But our website is the best. They can always call me directly on my cell phone, which is 941-544-7226. They can email me at barron@theschim.com, which is Barron, BARRON, at theschim, THESCHIM.com. And those are the best ways to reach us.
Fantastic. So I am going to have a link to everything, to the website, to the offer that you've got. If you want to send over some specific blog articles, I can link to those too. Not an issue at all. They will be on our show notes. So everybody listening, head over to wowdigital.com/podcast, and those notes will be on there for you. So thanks again for joining in, Barron. It's been great having you on the Nonprofit Digital Success Podcast. To everybody listening, as I mentioned, the links that Barron's provided are going to be on the show notes. So just head over there. Until our next episode, keep on being successful.
Thank you very much, David. I enjoyed this very much.
Thank you.